Darkness presses heavy against the forest, broken only by the cold gleam of stars above. The night air bites, and every sound seems sharper when the hunters crouch together, spears clutched tightly. Somewhere out there, predators lurk, eyes glinting, paws moving silently through brush. For countless nights, mankind has endured this vulnerability, huddled in fear, wishing for warmth and safety against the shadows. And then it happens. Two stones collide, sharp edges sparking briefly in the dark. At first, it's nothing more than a flash here and gone in the blink of an eye. But then again, another strike. A flicker of orange light leaps, tiny yet alive, before fading into nothing. The tribe stares, hearts racing. What is this magic hiding inside stone? Is it dangerous? Is it useful? Or is it some spirit revealing itself just long enough to tease them? The moment is charged with awe. Hands strike the stones again, curious, cautious, almost playful. This time the spark lands on a tuft of dry grass. It smolders, faint smoke rising. One hunter leans close, instinctively blowing, and suddenly the impossible becomes real. A small flame blossoms in the dark. The tribe recoils in fear, some stumbling backward. Fire has always been a thing to run from, a beast of the forest that devours trees. But here it is, not raging across the horizon, not striking from the sky, but sitting small and fragile in their hands. So before you enjoy the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Now, back to the campfire that didn't exist a heartbeat ago. The hunters gather slowly, mesmerized. The fire crackles faintly, casting shadows that dance across white eyes and trembling hands. Some think it's alive, a spirit that must be respected. Others fear it might leap up and swallow them whole. Still, no one can look away. For the first time, the night has competition. A historically accurate fact here. Many scientists believe early humans likely discovered fire by accident through natural sources like lightning strikes or volcanic eruptions, long before learning to spark it themselves. But the breakthrough moment, striking flint or pyrite to deliberately coax fire, was revolutionary. It transformed fire from something stumbled upon to something summoned. And here's a strange little detail. Some early groups used what's called iron pyrite, a glittering stone that, when struck, showers sparks far more easily than plain flint. Imagine the first tribe seeing golden, sparkling rocks not just as pretty, but as keys to summoning light itself. Jewelry or fire starter? Tough choice, though survival probably won the argument. Fear mixes with laughter around the flickering glow. One brave soul tries to feed the flame with too much grass, and it flares suddenly, making everyone yelp and scatter like startled birds. Another hunter waves his hand too close, and singes his hair, earning the prehistoric equivalent of a nickname like Crispy Fingers, that sticks for months. The tribe laughs nervously, tension easing with humor, because even in the face of new magic, laughter is the oldest bomb. The flame sputters dangerously, shrinking as the grass is consumed. Panic sets in. What if they lose it? What if this tiny miracle disappears and never returns? Desperate, they toss in twigs, then branches, feeding it like an infant. Slowly the fire grows, steadying into a rhythm of crackles and smoke. The hunters don't yet know they've invented campfire songs, but the hums and murmurs that rise are the first notes of comfort in a world that has always been too dark, too cold, too dangerous. It's hard to overstate what they must have felt. Warmth brushes their faces, chasing away the night chill. Shadows of predators hesitate at the edge of the glow, unwilling to cross this new boundary. For once, humans feel not like prey, but like masters of a secret weapon. They have brought a piece of the sun down to earth. But still, fear lingers. Will it grow too large and consume them? Will it vanish and never return? They don't know yet that fire can be made again and again. Tonight, it feels like a one-time miracle, fragile as breath. And so they sit, circling close, watching every spark, guarding it with reverence. Somewhere in that circle, a child reaches out, palm open to the warmth. His eyes widen, and he smiles. It is the first recorded smile at a campfire, unrecorded, of course, but certain nonetheless. And in that smile, something stirs in humanity itself. This is more than survival. This is the beginning of wonder, of mastery, of the long journey from frightened hunters to fire makers. The night presses close again, but this time, it does not win. The flame trembles, casting long shadows that stretch and twist across the stone walls of the shallow cave. The hunters watch it as though it might leap up and speak. Their hearts are racing, not just from awe but from fear. They have seen fire before, always at a distance, roaring through dry grasslands. lightning-born and terrifying. They know its appetite, how it devours trees and chases animals into chaos. But this is different. This fire is theirs, and it sits small, like a child that could be both dangerous and miraculous, depending on how they treat it. One of them edges closer, hand trembling. He reaches out as though to touch it, but yanks back when the heat stings his skin. The others laugh nervously, the sound high and uncertain. Already, they are learning. Fire cannot be touched, but it can be felt. It doesn't just burn, it warms. That realization spreads among them like a silent ripple. For the first time, the night is not a frozen prison. The air near the flame softens, wrapping them in invisible arms. But fear lingers. Every time the fire spits or pops, someone jumps. A spark lands on dry leaves, and a chorus of gasps erupts. They stomp it out, eyes wide, muttering the Stone Age equivalent of, "Don't let it escape." For them, this is not just a tool, it feels like a creature. Alive, unpredictable, demanding. One hunter even bows his head, whispering to it as if to a spirit, hoping respect will keep it from turning wild. The historically accurate fact here is that many anthropologists believe fire was treated as sacred by early humans. Evidence from ancient hearths suggests deliberate placement and care, hinting that fire wasn't just practical, it was revered. To them, it was as much a gift as a tool, perhaps even something divine. And here's a strange detail. Some groups likely carried smoldering logs with them when they traveled, cradling glowing embers wrapped in bark or moss to keep the flame alive. Imagine the paranoia of being assigned fire carrier for the day. One stumble in the river, and suddenly you're the guy who lost the sun. Around the little blaze, reactions differ. Some lean close, mesmerized by the glow. Others stay back, suspicious, clutching their spears as though they could fight it if needed. One child giggles at the way firelight dances on a stone wall, tracing strange shapes. Another hunter throws in a twig and gasps with delight as it bursts into flame, then immediately scrambles back in alarm. The tribe laughs again, more freely this time. Slowly, fear is making room for wonder. Of course, experiments are inevitable. Someone dares to wave a stick through the flame, then pulls it back, the end glowing orange. He brandishes it like a weapon, startling a neighbor, who ducks and curses in prehistoric mumbling. It's the first torch, though nobody names it yet. Another pokes at the fire with his spear, only to have the wooden shaft catch. Panic erupts until he tosses it aside, stamping frantically. Lesson learned. Fire eats wood faster than it eats stone. Jokes begin to emerge. One hunter pretends to warm his backside too close and leaps up yelping, earning the first hot seat laughter in history. Another squints at the flame and declares it must be hungry, tossing in a scrap of meat to feed it. The smell that follows, rich, savory, unlike anything they've known, makes everyone's stomach growl. They don't yet know it, but they've just had their first taste of cooked food. The wonder grows. Firelight stretches into the night, pushing back shadows. Predators who once stalked at the edges hesitate now. Glowing eyes retreat into the brush. For the first time in living memory, the tribe feels safe enough to laugh loudly after dark. That alone is a revolution. Imagine sleeping not with one eye open, but under the soft comfort of light and warmth. Fire isn't just survival, it's freedom from fear. Yet the tribe remains cautious. They whisper about whether the flame will vanish if they sleep, or worse, grow angry and consume the cave. They argue about who must watch it. It becomes a duty, a sacred role, to guard the flame. Even sleep is reshaped by this new companion. Someone must always stay awake, eyes fixed on the orange heart of their new world. And in that long flickering night, the line between fear and wonder blurs. Fire is dangerous, yes, but it is also beautiful. It is the first thing humans ever truly tamed, even if only barely. Tomorrow, they will test its limits. Try to spark it again, learn what it needs and what it rejects. Tonight, though, they sit in awe, huddled together, caught between laughter and reverence. For the first time, the night feels shorter. And though the fire sputters and smokes, though it makes them cough and tear up, nobody wants to look away. They don't yet know that this moment will divide all of human history into before fire and after fire. All they know is that the world is suddenly warmer, brighter, and alive with possibility. The next morning, the tribe wakes groggy but buzzing with excitement. The fire is still there, smoldering in glowing coals like the heart of some sleeping beast. They crowd around it, poking it with sticks, blowing gently, marveling when orange tongues leap up again. Someone mutters with relief fire hasn't abandoned them in the night. But now comes the harder lesson. How to make it come back when it does die. That's where the trial and error begins. They already know stone striking stone made sparks once, but nobody was quite sure how. Half the group bangs rocks together with all the finesse of toddlers with toy drums. Sparks fly, but most land uselessly. A few hit dry grass, which smolders briefly before fizzling out. Groans of frustration fill the air. It feels like trying to get Wi-Fi in a cave. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and nobody knows why. One clever hunter tries holding a bunch of dried moss in his hands while striking flint against it. He blows hard, nearly passing out, until the moss suddenly glows red. He yelps, tossing it to the ground. Everyone scrambles backward, then cautiously creeps forward as the moss flickers to life. There's laughter, relief, and just a little chest-thumping pride. This is the first moment of controlled fire making, even if it came with singed eyebrows. Here's the historically accurate fact. Early humans used flint and pyrite or flint and steel-like stones to create sparks. Archaeological findings from sites like Qesem Cave in Israel suggest controlled fire use as early as 400,000 years ago, though the ability to reliably create it probably came later. It wasn't just luck, they had to learn the right stones, the right angle, and the right tinder. And here's a stranger detail. Some early groups discovered that bird nests made perfect tinder. The dry, woven material caught sparks quickly, almost like nature's fire starter kit. Of course, stealing bird nests probably came with some angry squawking parents dive-bombing their heads. Imagine explaining that bruise. Oh, this? Yeah, I got into a fight with a pigeon. You should see the other guy. The tribe experiments endlessly. One man tries puffing into the embers too hard and accidentally sends ashes into his neighbor's eyes, leading to the first prehistoric slapstick routine. Another holds a burning stick like a torch but trips, nearly setting his own hair on fire. From these mistakes, they learn. Fire likes gentle breath, not wild gusts. Fire likes dry things, not damp. Fire grows faster if fed small pieces before big ones. It's like training a pet, except this one can roast you if you mess up. As the days pass, patterns emerge. They strike flint against certain stones, cradle sparks in nests of dried grass or bark, and feed the tiny flame with twigs, before adding larger logs. Someone notices that rotten wood catches faster than fresh branches. Another realizes pine needles burn bright but vanish quickly. Slowly, fire-making shifts from miracle to skill. There's a ritualistic air to it now. Each attempt draws a crowd, people leaning in, holding their breath as sparks fall. When it works, the cheer rises like at a modern sports game, arms raised, faces lit by the glow. Fire is no longer an accident, it's becoming a craft. Of course, mistakes still happen. One day, a young hunter, overconfident, tries to carry a torch into tall grass. The grass catches, and suddenly half the savanna is blazing. The tribe panics, scattering like startled gazelles, watching in horror as flames chase across the land. When the fire finally dies, the hunters return cautiously and discover roasted animals lying in the ashes. The disaster becomes a feast. It's messy, dangerous, but also strangely effective. Lesson learned. Fire can destroy, but it can also deliver food in ways they hadn't dreamed of. At night, the tribe practices keeping embers alive. Someone figures out that burying coals under ash keeps them smoldering until morning. It's a trick that saves hours of spark making. Another discovers that damp moss can hold glowing embers without bursting into flame, making it easier to carry fire across short distances. These little insights become precious knowledge, shared like secrets. Laughter and jokes weave through the process. When a hunter sneezes too close to the flames and nearly blows them out, the group teases him for days. Another insists that rubbing his belly before striking stones brings better luck. Soon, rituals and superstitions begin forming around fire making. Some lighthearted, some deadly serious. After all, this isn't just a trick, it's survival. The bond between humans and fire deepens with every experiment. They no longer see it purely as a dangerous beast, but as a partner still wild but manageable. It becomes part of their daily rhythm. Wake, feed the flame, cook, protect it, guard it at night. Fire is no longer just a tool. It is woven into the fabric of their lives. By the end of this stage, the tribe is no longer dependent on lightning strikes or lucky accidents. They can summon fire from stone, coax it into life, and carry it wherever they go. They are still clumsy, still learning, but the spark is in their hands now. And with it, a new sense of power begins to stir. It's not just about warmth anymore. Fire is freedom. And soon, they'll discover it can change far more than the night. The tribe gathers around the fire one evening, not just for warmth or safety, but for something new. Curiosity. A hunter holds a piece of raw meat over the flames with a stick, squinting as fat drips and sizzles. At first the smell is strange, sharp, smoky, but then it turns mouth-watering. When he finally bites into the charred chunk, his eyes widen. It's softer, juicier, easier to chew. He waves it around proudly, only to drop it in the dirt seconds later. The first prehistoric 5-second rule is born. Cooking becomes the next revolution. Meat roasted over flames isn't just tastier, it's safer. Parasites, hidden dangers of raw food, vanish in the heat. Historically, this is accurate. Scientists believe fire transformed human diets, making nutrients more accessible and fueling brain growth. The calories saved from not gnawing endlessly on raw roots and sinew may have literally powered human evolution. So next time you bite into a cheeseburger, you can thank some nervous hunter with burned fingers. But it isn't only meat that changes. Someone tosses tubers into the embers and forgets them. Hours later, digging them out, they find the roots sweet and soft, no longer bitter or tough. Accidentally, they've invented the first baked potatoes minus the sour cream. Others discover nuts crack open more easily when warmed, or that bitter seeds lose some of their harshness when roasted. Fire becomes the first chef, teaching flavors humans never knew existed. The social change is just as big. Before fire, the tribe huddled in darkness, listening to distant roars, always afraid of what lurked beyond. Now the nights are lit by orange glow, smoke curling upward, sparks drifting like stars. People gather in circles, faces flickering in the light, telling stories, humming, laughing. The first campfires create the first communities. Fire turns empty time into shared time. Think of it as humanity's earliest Netflix binge, except the entertainment was Uncle Grug, dramatically reenacting a mammoth hunt with very questionable sound effects. There's also safety. Predators who once prowled close now linger at the edge, yellow eyes glinting, but wary of the flames. The tribe sleeps more soundly, guarded by their blazing ally. Even insects, which once plagued them, shrink back from smoke. Fire is bug spray, security system, and nightlight all in one. Here's the strange detail. Some tribes in later periods discovered that tossing certain herbs or leaves onto the fire not only made the air smell pleasant, but also kept mosquitoes away. Imagine stumbling across that by accident. Hey, why aren't they biting me anymore? And suddenly becoming the prehistoric inventor of aromatherapy. The fire also becomes a tool for hunting. Remember that disastrous grass fire? It sparks an idea. Hunters realize they can drive animals into traps or open spaces by setting controlled blazes. It's dangerous, chaotic, but effective. With fire, they don't just chase prey, they herd it. This marks one of the earliest examples of humans reshaping the land to their advantage. The first farmers will later do the same, but right now, it's all about roasted antelope dinners. Storytelling takes on a new power in the firelight. Shadows flicker on cave walls, turning hands into dancing shapes, hunts into performances. The tribe begins to use symbols and gestures, building culture around the flame. Some scholars even believe fire gave humans more waking hours, shifting sleep patterns, and allowing for longer periods of teaching, bonding, and creativity. Without fire, maybe art, language, and music would have taken centuries longer to bloom. Of course, not everything goes smoothly. One elder insists the gods live inside the fire, demanding offerings. Another swears fire hates being stared at, covering his eyes every time he feeds it. Superstitions multiply like sparks in the wind. Fire becomes sacred, feared as much as loved. Even today, many cultures carry remnants of those early awe-filled beliefs in their rituals and myths. And then there's the humor. Someone discovers that tossing dried animal droppings into the fire makes the smoke extra thick, choking everyone nearby. The prank becomes a running joke, the first prehistoric whoopee cushion. Another accidentally drops his only loincloth into the flames and spends the next week inventing excuses, while everyone else laughs. Even in the Stone Age, fire brought comedy. By now, fire is more than survival. It's identity. Tribes define themselves by their mastery of it, boasting of who can spark it fastest, who can keep embers alive longest, who can roast meat without turning it into charcoal. Fire is becoming a mark of culture, of pride, of being human. The flame that once scared them is now their companion, their weapon, their cook, their storyteller. The night is no longer endless shadow, it's a circle of warmth and light carved out of the dark. And deep down, everyone feels it. This is a turning point. Something has shifted forever. But what they don't yet realize is that this new power won't stay a secret. Other groups will learn. Other tribes will see, and soon, the spark that began with a single strike of stone will spread like wildfire across the world. The fire crackles low in the night, embers glowing red like tiny eyes staring from the ashes. Around it, the tribe sits in a rare silence. They're no longer just shivering survivors huddled against the dark, there's something different now. They don't fully understand it, but the shift is undeniable. Fire hasn't only changed how they eat or sleep, it has changed what it means to be human. The spark that first leapt from stone to dry grass has become a legacy. It's not just practical, it's cultural, even spiritual. Each flame carries memory. Of the moment the first spark flew, of the first bite of cooked food, of the first night the shadows danced on cave walls. Fire has become a thread tying generations together. When a child asks where fire comes from, an elder tells the story with a proud smile. Never mind that the details keep getting exaggerated. In one version, lightning struck the ground. In another, the ancestors stole fire from the sky. And in the most dramatic telling, one brave hunter snatched it straight from the jaws of a volcano. If you think modern families argue about who invented the barbecue, imagine the prehistoric debates. The knowledge of fire spreads carefully, carried like treasure. One group teaches another by sharing not just sparks but technique. Which stones to strike, which plants to dry, how to blow gently until the ember comes alive. Each discovery becomes part of human identity. And with it, migration becomes easier. Moving to colder regions no longer means certain death. People can carry embers wrapped in bark, like tiny beating hearts, across miles of wilderness. A simple coal tucked away in ashes becomes the lifeline of a journey. Historically, this is accurate. Early humans really did transport fire this way before learning to reliably spark it themselves. Strange as it sounds, some early tribes even treated fire almost like a family member. They fed it carefully, whispered to it, never letting it die. A flame could burn for months, even years, tended day and night. The fire wasn't just warmth, it was continuity, a living inheritance. To let it go out was more than an inconvenience. It was a shame, a failure, maybe even a curse. As fire spreads, so do its uses. People harden wooden spears by charring the tips, making them stronger for hunting. They hollow logs by burning the insides, shaping the first dugout canoes. They bake clay near flames, and notice it hardens into something new. Pottery will come later, but the seed is planted. Fire is turning curiosity into invention. It's not just a survival tool anymore, it's the first step toward technology. And with every invention, fire pushes humanity further from the animals they once resembled. Other creatures may fear flames or stumble across them in nature, but only humans learn to command them, to pass the knowledge on, to turn a wild spark into a permanent companion. In that sense, the first fire wasn't just a practical breakthrough, it was the dawn of culture. Even jokes around the fire take on weight. The playful pranks, the laughter, the songs, they're no longer just noise. They're bonding rituals, ways of building trust, passing on identity, strengthening the tribe. Firelight becomes the stage where imagination grows. A hand casting shadows on the cave wall becomes a bison, a hunter, a god. Without fire, art and myth might never have found their place. You could almost say that when fire was discovered, Netflix, YouTube, and TikTok were all waiting inside it, hiding for a few 100,000 years, until we could invent screens. But there's a price too. With fire comes responsibility. An ember left untended could spark destruction, wiping out food, shelters, even lives. Every flame is both gift and danger. The tribe learns discipline. The fire must always be watched, fed, respected. In many ways, it's their first teacher in responsibility, teaching them that power without care can turn against them. Still, they know this much. Without fire, they would never be who they are now. It has reshaped their nights, their food, their safety, their imagination. It has given them the courage to push into colder lands, the creativity to invent, the space to dream. And so, as the flames settle lower, the tribe stirs the embers, coaxing them to live until dawn. The firelight flickers across their faces, across their white eyes, across the stones still blackened from the first spark. Somewhere deep in their bones, they sense the truth that this is not just a chapter in their story. This is the beginning of all stories. The first spark was more than fire. It was the birth of humanity's future.